Is this relationship weird? Part 2, subheading, I am a hypocrite, on this episode of the StoryPod podcast. Come on in, bestie. Welcome to StoryPod, where we do the doing of story development together. Brought to you by Creative BFF. All right. Hello, friend. Okay, listen, bestie. First and foremost, before I get into it, I've had jury duty all week, and so my brain is a little bit fried, so please forgive me. I do have notes for today's video, so I will be referring to them to just help me keep my brain straight, okay? My name is Ashley. I am your creative BFF. Look at this camera. Sorry, I'm looking at the camera. It looked like there was some lag. Look, I'm like kind of slowing down here, which is weird. But anyway, let's continue. Please forgive. I may or may not remember to cut that out. Anyway, so as I was saying, my name is Ashley. I am your creative BFF. And this is the StoryPod podcast. And what we do here at the StoryPod podcast is we put in these story development, storytelling reps so that when we are sitting down to write our own story, we already have the storytelling muscle memory to kind of make the process maybe a little smoother, a little quicker, a little more satisfying for all parties involved. And so it's just like, it's like going to the storytelling gym. This is basically what we do here. So with that said, I have to tell you where you can reach me. Okay. I'm going to say, I think that the best way to reach me will be on my Instagram, which is linked below, your_creative BFF. Okay. You can also reach me at my website, creativebff.com. And you can also send me an email to ash@creativebff.com. But really, I think the DM is going to be the best way because I have an aversion to emails. So please forgive me for that. I am only human. I am not perfect. Okay. But we gather here today because last week, with my whole chest, very firmly, very decidedly, I said that yes, the particular age gap / power imbalance, perceived power imbalance relationship that we were discussing, yes, was weird. It was weird to me. However, in the following days and recently, I got back into a particular comic that I love and that I've mentioned in a previous video as an example of how to make the audience, basically invested in your characters right away as one of the examples. And I had to remind myself, like, oh girl, this is an age gap relationship with a power imbalance that should be weird. However, why are you into it? Why do I like this? And the story in question is Taisho Gakusei Aisaika. The various titles that I've seen, and I may not be remembering this correctly, are like Taisho era students is a devoted husband. Taisho era Cinderella or something like that. It is becoming one of my current fave mangas. Okay, so listen. There is also, and I'm gonna say this, when I first started reading this manga several months ago, I was a little bit weirded out by what I read of the premise. But the little snippets that I saw, because it was basically somebody caught me on Instagram. You know how sometimes on Instagram people will put up little snippets of a manga or something like that, and I was like, oh, what is this? I need to see this. I need to read this. And then when I read the premise, which is that a 24-year-old maid marries the 18-year-old second son of basically the noble house that she serves in, and this particular second son was kind of almost I would say she took care of him a lot, and he really enjoyed her. So she knew him when he was like 6 and she was like 12, and they kind of grew up a little bit together until she was around 18 or so. Excuse me. So initially when I heard that, I was like, ooh, that makes me a little bit uncomfy. But let me see what she's talking about, what Miss Taiko Gakse Aisaika is talking about. And I fell in love for the aforementioned reasons. Well, the reasons mentioned in the video that I did with the tips on how to make your audience sort of fall in love with your character immediately based on what was working on me. Okay. And I believe she was the example for like Goodwill, where we just love her, girl. We just love her characterization. She's a character that we want to follow because we just have, warm and happy feelings towards her, and we want to see the best for her. So it is weird, but I'm going to try to give the reasons for why I am enjoying this particular romance and why I am no longer finding it weird. Now, I want to preface this by saying this is not a justification, or this is not me co-signing, agreeing with weird age gap relationships in real life, okay? Where it's cutting it real close on the line of like, one of the partners is like, we just turned legal. You know what I'm saying? Okay. This is not me saying this is okay in real life necessarily. But I'm just saying why I am able to suspend disbelief and kind of put my own, weirded outnesses about this type of relationship aside. So these are not in any particular order of importance. So I am going to look at my notes. Please forgive me. Okay. So the first issue that I'm going to address, according to what I've written on my notes, is that there is a power imbalance. However, this particular power imbalance is in favor of the younger party. So this is still not good. Like, it's still not great. All right. For our modern standards. Now we're looking at it from a modern point of view. Okay. But at the time, things were different. Okay. But basically the power imbalance is in favor of the younger person in the relationship, being the young master, the male, the husband, even though he is 6 years younger than the female lead. He is basically like the prince of the story. He's the one who is from the noble family. He, has the money, I guess. I don't think that he's not actually like rich, but he's like doing his thing or whatever, but he's from like a wealthy family, a well-placed family in society. Girl, I'm looking all over the place. Forgive me if my eyes wander. I am a little bit sleepy. My brain, as I mentioned, is a little bit frazzled, so my eyes might wander to something else catching my attention. I'm trying to look at you. Please forgive me if I don't look directly at you the whole time. But so that kind of, sort of, listen, it kind of balances it out a little more evenly. However, it is, especially for our modern standards and just for any standards in general, that is just on the face value, the quote unquote master of the house, or someone in the position of authority, who would be in a position of authority over like a staff member, a subordinate, a maid in the house. That is also normally a weird power imbalance. Just on face value, if we see it on paper, it's like, oh, that's not cool. That's kind of gross. That's kind of messed up. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely get that. I'm not justifying that. And I'm not saying that kind of a thing is ever okay. Okay. But in this case, the characterizations of the main leads takes it out of like, somebody being really like a lecherous, like, I'm going to use my power to force this person to do me a sexual favor or to become like some kind of sex slave or whatever in the situation. So there's that. Another thing that I noticed is that they feel, and this again is not a justification for anything in real life, okay? But to me, they feel developmentally similar, okay? In that the younger male lead is very, seems pretty mature now. I know I'm saying this and I feel icky saying it because I know that these are justifications that have been used by, what do the YouTubers say? By PDF files, read between the lines if we're not allowed to say certain words on YouTube. And that is not that's not like a justification to engage with a minor. Now, technically, side note, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Technically, even in our society, 18 is technically a legal age to, become romantically involved with somebody. Is it still weird and gross? Yes. Okay. But they do feel sort of developmentally similar in terms of their characters, their personalities. There's not like a wild childishness that the husband displays. He feels like you can sort of forget that this is an 18-year-old and not somebody who is her same age. She's 24, so 6-year age gap. All right. I'm feeling grosser as I go along in this video. I already said the next thing on my list, which is that the younger person is, by our standards today, technically legal to engage in romantic relationship with. Oh gosh. Anyway, when I compare it to the other weird relationship that I was talking about last week, the perceived age gap is slightly smaller. It's a little bit smaller. So in that previous story, the perceived age gap was a 27-year-old professor and a 17-year-old, a perceived 17-year-old student at the same school that the professor taught at, however, not being the professor's student. And so that is a perceived age gap of 10 years. Now, I'm saying perceived because if you don't remember, the 17-year-old is actually like a 68 or 98-year-old vampire who got turned at 17, but they are masquerading, I guess, as a 17-year-old at this particular academy. So that's why it's kind of like, it feels kind of weird. And also, we are definitely, in our society, I am definitely, acculturated is the word I want to use. Is that the correct word? I'm gonna use it, acculturated, to find teacher-student relationships, oftentimes regardless of the age gap, to be abhorrent, to be immoral, to be gross. And I do still stand by that because of the relative positions and the relative roles. That is also something that we kind of see pretty regularly, I guess, in our news media and in reports and things like that. We're seeing these reports of teachers basically messing with students, and oftentimes it's like a middle school student, maybe a high schooler, with some, the youngest would be like late 20s, middle to late 20s teacher, sometimes in their 30s, 40s, whatever. And that's just not cool. And that's like usually that kid's teacher. And it's like, oh, the layers of grossness. So that relationship is in our consciousness as something that is uncomfortable, as something that is a taboo, and particularly abusive because of the relationship dynamics there. So, that's kind of what we see more. So that's why I'm saying, like, I've been socialized and I think this is positive. I think this is correct. All right. That type of relationship in an age gap, and where these people meet, where the two parties in this type of terrible relationship meet, being in a place of trust and learning and teaching, and you are supposed to be guiding and teaching and helping to shape the young minds, and instead you are, anyway, we won't continue. You know what I'm talking about. That is hardcore. So this one in this particular story is like, we do see that, we have heard that, but I feel like, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the way I have particularly been, I don't want to keep saying socialized, but the thought process that has developed around a maid master, a maid kind of master of the house type of relationship, is that oftentimes it's kind of seen as like not often, I won't even say oftentimes. There are books, there are stories that go either way, where it's like the master of the house is this terrible, horrible person who just runs through the maids, and they don't have any power or agency over themselves, because they are at the mercy of this particular guy, because for whatever reason. But then there are also those stories that are positive, where the master of the house is a great person, and he happens to fall in love with a maid, and so then it becomes like a Cinderella type of story, right? And it's not a thing where the maid is being dominated by the master and forced to do something that perhaps she or he would not want to do, wouldn't want to do. So the perspective that I'm coming into a story like this with is that if the parties are both good people in general, the fact that one is a maid and one is a master of the house doesn't feel nasty or weird or bad to me, unless that's what the author is setting up as the characterizations. And that's not the case here. They're both very lovely people. So there is also for this story, a time period distance. So it's not like a modern tale, which I think brings it closer to home, and it's kind of makes it even weirder, which is what was going on, I think, with the story that we discussed last week. It was at an academy of some sort. The impression that I got, even though it wasn't explicitly stated in the question, was that it is kind of more of a modern story, maybe even slightly futuristic. I didn't get the impression that it was slightly futuristic, but that it would be more of like taking place in our time period. So that, of course, brings certain things to mind, like I was mentioning previously, certain stories to mind regarding teacher-student relationships. So this story, however, takes place in a time period where the expectations in society and things like that were different. And so it's easier to put mental distance between what we find, or I'll just keep it personal to myself, what I find to be uncomfortable and weird in a relationship taking place in modern day versus what may or may not have been weird or uncomfortable or taboo in the time period that the relationship is taking place. So there is that distance, and that does help soften the blow of weirdness. Okay, a little bit. I'm trying to see, is there anything else that I want to say before I give you my last point? I'm making sure I went through all of my notes. Yeah. I kind of alluded to this already, but what also, made it less weird for me and softened it for me, or whatever the case may be, however I want to word it, is that I really like the characters. This, of course, in a real life situation, I have to keep saying it, in a real life situation, that would not factor in. Doesn't matter if they're both really likable people. If it's a taboo relationship, that should not be going on. For this case, though, being a story, being that both parties are legal would be considered legal in our modern times, they are also both really likable characters, especially the older female lead, and watching their relationship develop in a natural way is a very satisfying and enjoyable process. And I just am enjoying the story. So after a while, the initial weirdness kind of goes away. You just kind of slip into the groove of following this couple as they, learn each other and fall more in love and, understand each other and just kind of do life together. So it's a satisfying little cute story, quite enjoyable. And that also just kind of softens the blow, and just over time it just feels less weird, kind of like jumping into a pool. It's cold at first, and then it just kind of starts to get warm, and it starts, you start to acclimate yourself to it. So that's kind of the situation. And then I think that my final point will be that I'm a hypocrite. We'll just have to cover all the bases. I also, I guess, am a hypocrite. And what I said last week apparently does not apply across the board with every story that has both an age gap and a power imbalance. There are other factors at play for me that would make me either accept or reject a couple. Now, things that are egregious, there are some things that I would not be able to just kind of put aside, whether or not it's an age, like even in other types of relationships where there are certain other things taking place in the relationship, whether I liked the people or not. It's like, okay, there are certain things that I would not be able to be down for and just kind of like go on the ride of the story. There are certain things I will not be listing those things because I haven't thought about what those things are. It's kind of like a you know it when you see it type of vibe sometimes. But yeah. So I just like these characters. There were other factors that I've already mentioned. I'm not gonna say them all again that make it an enjoyable story for me, that I'm still able to be down for what this couple is doing. They are technically both legal, even if that is a little bit weird, the age gap and how they kind of started out. And somehow this author was able to successfully make what could be a weird relationship, at least in the minds of Western readers. Maybe it's more accepted in Japan or, in other countries, but definitely here in the West, we kind of, we have at least discussions around it, even if both parties are legal. There still is the weird, the way we feel weird about, a 10, 6, 7, whatever year age gap, even if both parties are like in their 20s and 30s or whatever, it still kind of feels weird sometimes. But anyway, I'm not going to belabor the point. When my brain gets tired, I can just kind of ramble about nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. But I am going to ask you, what do you think? Have you read any bit of the story that I mentioned, Taisho Gakusei Aisaika? Or have you seen another book, whether it's an age gap, power imbalance type of story, or another type of relationship that could be weird, that could be uncomfortable, that could be taboo, but that was handled really well to kind of make it not feel so much taboo, to kind of make it feel like a legitimate type of situation? Let me know any good reads that I should check out. Or if you have looked at this, if you have seen this manga or any other type of story that deals with this subject matter and you're like, it's always weird, It's always taboo. It's always terrible. It should never be a thing. It normalizes something that does not need to be normalized. Let me know also down below. You know, we all have a place here to share our opinions as long as we do it respectfully, please, because we're all friends. We don't need to be in a fight over different opinions. There's no reason to fight over different opinions. We can still have be friends and have different opinions. But anyway, listen, I love you. Have a great weekend. I will see you next week. Okay. And let me know what you think down below.